Hi guys, welcome to the Movication podcast where we're here to give you a movie education. This is the first episode and we're really excited to get this thing going. I'm here with my friend Esteban and who's a big fan of movies, and we're here to talk about share our passion with movies. And basically what this podcast is going to be about is we're going to give our opinions on different movie trilogies and different movies and what we think makes them good about them, and sort of try and compare to at times and give our opinion about which one's best and which one's worse, essentially. I hope we can't overall judgment. However, we do recommend that if you haven't seen what we're going to talk about, please do see it before listen to the podcast, because we don't want to ruin it for everyone, and there will be a lot of spoilers probably in each episode. So please watch it film before we talk about it, because you don't want to mess it up for you. All right, is that good? Should I stop it? Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Movie Education Podcast. I'm here today with my good friend Harrison, and we're going to be talking about two good trilogies in my humble opinion: the Iron Man trilogy and the Captain America trilogy. Iron Man trilogy began with Iron Man, of course, in 2008. The sequel was in 2010, I believe, with Iron Man 2, and then it finished off with Iron Man 3 in 2013. Captain America began with Captain America the First Avenger in 2011, then Captain America the Winter Soldier, the sequel, in 2014, and then finally Captain America Civil War in 2016. And today, both of us are going to be having a debate about which one is the better trilogy.
Right. I'm going to start off by talking about the Iron Man trilogy and how to discuss its plot. As personally, I think the Iron Man trilogy is better, and Nesma thinks the Captain America trilogy is better. So I'm going to discuss the Iron Man plot. Basically, the first one sort of starts with Tony Stark. He's sort of this big business philanthropist that sells weapons, basically, and he's very rich, but he's sort of like your typical billionaire playboy sort of person who doesn't really care about others and spends what he wants and thinks he can get whatever he wants with. And then when he gets captured by the terrorists, he seems a new perspective on life, and then he sort of stops going into the weapons business. He sort of says it's not right because all of my weapons are being used in the wrong hands and not what they was intended for. So he stops, and like I like that character arc of how in the first half an hour of the film, it's sort of just his perspective on life changes completely. Like I love how he was it was essentially irresponsible, like sort of like a man child who had no responsibility, didn't really care that much, and how he changed to sort of he was socially aware, he cared about what was happening, he wanted to change the world, which also led to him creating Iron Man. He wanted to as he said in the second one, he wanted to have world peace. And I think that the experience he had when he was captured by the terrorists in the first film sort of leads to everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and like being socially responsible. And I think that's really important. And also, he, as I said about he's like the rich billionaire person, he sort of becomes more caring. At the start, he sleeps with this reporter who he'd known for like 5 minutes right at the start, and beyond the film, he just becomes more caring, especially towards Pepper, who was his assistant, and eventually by the end of the second one, they are boyfriend and girlfriend, and it just shows how much his personality developed and how much he became so much more caring and so much loving towards generally everything. And I think he grew as the film goes on, and I think that's perfect of how a good film should be. It should show how a character can go and develop throughout the film. I love that about the Iron Man film, especially the first one, because it just shows how Tony Stark, the character, goes, and I think that's beautiful. Esteban, what do you think about the first Captain America film?
See, what I love about the first Captain America film is the fact that it's a scrawny Brooklyn dude who joins the army, even though that all his best friend begs him not to just because of how he is. He's a small guy, he's skinny. He shows no he doesn't look like the type of guy that you'd see charging in Normandy and fighting in World War II, yet he still does it. And he then gets into this program with, I believe it's Howard Stark, where they give him the super soldier serum. However, it shouldn't have been him, it should have been another character, Peggy Carter. using that, it just created a whole sort of switch. Instead of being Peggy Carter, it was Steve. 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 Yeah, let's just go with Steve. And well, after that, he gains all of his strength. He becomes Captain America, and yet he still doesn't. He doesn't leave the whole scrawny little kid behind. He's still him. He still never. He never shows fear. He's always your normal patriotic American. That's what I love about Captain America. He's very patriotic, and he's always good. That's probably one of the reasons why in Avengers Endgame he was the one who had control of Thor's hammer. And in the course of the movie, then they fight off the Nazis, and one of the villains of that film is Zemo, and then the Red Skull. Red Skull is a German who can't remember why, but he is basically all red. He has basically a red skull, and I think what else happens in the film? This is bad. My mind's gone blank. There's also like a looming relationship between Peggy Carter and Steve.
Yeah.
Okay, Harrison. Steve? Wait.
It is Steve. His name is Steve.
Yeah, but what's the surname though?
Rogers. Steve
Rogers.
Rogers.
There you go. Steve Rogers. Yeah, and that relationship starts. It doesn't really evolve into anything, but you just see a nice relationship there, and the whole objective of the villain Red Skull is to obtain the Tesseract, which is a Norse blue object that can control space. And I don't think Red Skull knew this in the time, but inside the Tesseract is the Space Stone, which is one of the 5 Infinity Stones that gains Thanos all of his power in the end of Avengers Infinity War. And so that was the whole process of the film. Red Skull wants a Tesseract. Steve Rogers and all of his team have to go ahead and not let him get the Tesseract. And in the end, Steve Rogers has to fly a plane into the Arctic Ocean with the Tesseract inside, and freeze and die. And I always thought that was such a great moment. Peggy was on the I think it was a sort of call. She could hear him, he could hear her. They were on the radio together, and he knew that he'd never see her again. And he wanted to save her life, and he did. He was in the ice for 70 years. He woke up not knowing anything about the future, and he still continued being Captain America.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I prefer the Iron Man films only because the way their plot is, it's just, especially in Iron Man 2, it sort of shows. Obviously, he's on the brink of death for like 80% of the film with the way the arc reactor is poisoning his blood, and I just feel like he doesn't tell anyone out of care. I think I think that shows how caring Tony Stark was as well, because I love that about him, because he didn't want to tell Pepper because of how much Pepper meant to him, and he kept it to himself to sort of save Pepper from the pain, and because she was quite a warrior throughout the whole of the films, all 3 films, and in the later films when she's in Avengers and all that stuff, she's a warrior, and it just shows how much he thought of her, even though they were never a thing until like the end of the film. It just shows how much he thought of her, and how he didn't want to hurt her, so he didn't tell her about any of the stuff that was going wrong. So in his mind, it was better for him to see him as like that selfish billionaire still in Iron Man 2, instead of telling her what's actually going wrong. That's why he did all the stupid stuff, like drive in the race in Monaco and have that house party and everything like that. Just I like that about him, how he it may not seem like it, but he put others above himself in a I mean, slightly bizarre way. He did. It may not look like it, but I think he did. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that about him. How he sort of I don't know how to describe it. If it's just his like, human instinct was there, even though many people perceived it as not being there. Especially like as he was also seen as this narcissistic billionaire who loved himself, and
Mm.
I don't think that was the case. I feel like
Yeah.
he cared a lot more about others, and especially his dad, who he said who said many times in Iron Man films was quite mean to him. But I still think he cared about him so much, even though he may not have had the best childhood. And it just shows that even though no matter what happens to him, he still cares about others. And I think that's wonderful to see. Even though he's represented throughout all of the films as a narcissistic character, I think that's wonderful.
True. True. It's good ideas. I mean, I think, well, in the sequel, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, I think that's when you clearly could see, well, Captain America. That's, in my opinion, one of the best Marvel films just because of how it is. This is 2 years after he's woken up from asleep in ice. He's still trying to figure out everything. There's a one scene in the film which I love where you can see him writing down sort of like
Yeah,
trivia about stuff in the past. You see like Star Wars and I think Jimi Hendrix, and I just think that's such a cool thing. That'd be a cool thing to do because there's so many things that I missed from 1940 all the way to 2012, and that's about the start of the film. You know, he's still happy. He's still well there. He's friends with Natasha Romanoff, who he met in Avengers. Um, he met Sam, the Falcon from I think just the whole Shield. I think in general, and
yeah,
in the film, what happens later is that Hydra just starts becoming a sort of big threat, and Hydra is also from the first film. So they've since 1940, they've again like Captain America's remained there for all their like time, and that's where you see one character that we believe that died in the first film, who I forgot to mention, Bucky Barnes, who is the friend that um told Steve to not join the army because well he thought that he'd die. And that was when I watched in 2014, and that was a great plot twist, you know, seeing Bucky Barnes again as someone different, someone you thought to yourself, wait a minute, I thought he died. No, he's not. He's there. He just looks different, and he's trying to kill Steve. Why is that? And you start to get more into the film. You discover that he's been brainwashed by Hydra. His arm is he's all metallic, and well, at the end of the film, they have a whole big battle in the Shield building, and he actually saves Bucky in the end. So it's a whole like juxtaposition, saving your own enemy.
yeah,
That's what I always love. Steve, knowing that even though it's still his best friend, he's trying to kill him, he still saves him. Why? Because Steve is such a great character, he's such a good man, he's brave, he shows courage, like a true American that he is.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Fair
why I
enough.
love
Fair
that
enough.
film.
Yeah, I do love the part where you mentioned about the notebook. I think that's a really cool
Yeah.
touch in the film. I do think that's a really cool touch. Um, yeah, I think that's it for plot. Another thing I love about the Iron Man films is the soundtrack. I feel like
Mhm.
it's also like the punk rock sort of music that Tony Stark likes. I think that's I think that a lot it's a nice back to all of the stuff that happens, back tone, sort of all the stuff that happens to in the films, especially when
Mhm.
he first trying out the Iron Man suit and he shoots a rocket at a tank and he turns his back, and in the background is like this punk rock music. I can't remember the name of the song, but I think what what a cool scene. I like he turns around, and I know it's quite common in action films, like
Yeah.
around the massive explosion in the background. Oh my god, it looks so cool. But
Mhm.
I think it's a next level to what the common stereotype of that is in a film, because he turns his back instead of the Hollywood pretty Prince thing on music you get. It's just punk rock, and I think
Yeah,
that's different to every other film. And I think it
yeah,
stands out so much, and I thought it's one scene I don't think I'll ever forget. He turns around
yeah. I get that.
and it's just the music in the background. It's amazing, and I love it, and I love the way they incorporate all the songs, all of the punk rock songs like
Hmm.
clubs throughout
Yeah,
each
yeah.
films, and I think that it's great. And I like that about the Iron Man films, how like it's small touches, but like
Hmm.
it creates so much impact. The small little touches of the songs and all that. It's I
Yeah.
think good.
I mean, in my opinion, I think you win in the whole soundtrack department just because Captain America doesn't necessarily have a whole soundtrack. It's rather like music. It has an original score, but there's no
Yeah,
like playlist. In America, in Iron Man, you have lots of AC/DC songs, lots of Queen
yeah,
songs, and
yeah,
well, in Captain America, you don't really have that.
yeah. It's just true.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you like about the Captain America films? Anything that you haven't talked about?
What haven't I talked about? We can do. I think I forgot to mention Civil War, and that's another great film in the whole trilogy. It's like there with Winter Soldier. I don't know which one to put more, like put
Yeah,
higher. And the reason why I love it is like the whole split between the two. It's a whole war. One
yeah,
wants to sign the whole big form, and the other doesn't. And um, it just splits up like the Avengers, which is something that I never expected to happen. And in the whole film, I think it was mostly Steve wanting to not do it because he didn't want to break up the whole. You didn't want to be a John Lennon, not a
yeah,
Yoko Ono. He didn't want to break up the band, yeah, because of his whole his laws and what he believes in. He knew that he had to do it. Another like side part of the film is the whole fact that Bucky is back and they still haven't captured him, but he's still under the control of Hydra. He then blows up the UN building, I think it was, and in that explosion, the king of Wakanda, not Black Panther, another Black Panther, his dad died, and that's why he got introduced to the Black Panther, Wakanda, everything. And that was a great introduction because I heard of Black Panther before, but I hadn't actually seen him. And after that, I just knew that the film would be amazing because he just looks sick. The whole scene where they're trying to capture Bucky and they're running, all the police are there, the whole chase scene. I love that scene. I love films that have a sort of chase scene.
yeah,
There's a there's lovely soundtrack. Like you get into it, you feel the thrill, and at the end they get captured, which then like just gets cancels it. But I just love that scene. And another scene from the movie that I love is probably the fight scene at the end, where you've got Vision, Iron Man, Black Widow, Spider Man, who also got introduced,
yeah,
another great character, a young Tom Holland. I think he was 19 when they filmed it, maybe older,
yeah,
but he looked young.
yeah,
That's another thing that I love because they finally had a Spider-Man that looked young, whereas the other two didn't really look that young. Because
yeah,
Spider-Man in the comics, he's a 16-year-old high school student, and I think Tom Holland when they filmed Spider-Man, not Tom, Tom Holland's around 19, 20, but Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire they were in the late 20s,
yeah,
so it's a little bit different. And that was a great introduction. You also saw Ant-Man, and I can't remember whether Ant-Man came out before or after the film because they both got released in 2016. But that was also a great introduction, and the scene is great. You've got I think Captain America versus Iron Man, Bucky versus the Black Panther. You've got Wanda from Avengers: Age of Ultron against um, I want to say it's Vision, probably.
Yeah, it
Then
was
you've
Vision.
got Hawkeye versus, I want to say Black Widow, yeah, and then just Ant-Man versus Spider-Man. So
Yeah,
it's a great like combination. All of those superheroes, like they're all totally different. You've got mystical powers, some like a Black Widow, you just shoot and stuff. And
yeah,
yeah, they don't get defeated in the end. Ant-Man has to become big. I love that scene when he like grabs, um, I think his name's Rhodes. Yeah,
yeah.
and
Really.
yeah, that's a sick scene.
Yeah, I'm gonna admit, I think that scene in Civil War is the best scene out of all of the 6 films. I know I just mentioned the one with
Yeah,
the cannon, all of that. I do feel like that scene where it's like the two teams head to head. I think that's the
yeah.
best scene out of all the 6 films. So yeah, I would agree. That's quite a good scene.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, about Iron Man 3, it's probably the worst of the Iron Man films. I
Yeah,
think 1 and 2 are much better than it. But I mean, it's not a bad film. I love the kid, the guy, the kid with the potato
yeah,
gun. I think he's amazing. I
yeah,
think he makes the film so much better. And I think I love how the film links very well from the first Avengers, because you see Tony Stark having panic attacks and anxiety attacks from when
yeah,
he went up to space with the nuclear rocket and launched out the Shatari ship. Uh, I love how it linked from the first Avengers film to Iron Man so effortlessly, like how it seemed like barely anything had happened between it. It seemed so like,
mm,
oh, it's just like another day, if that made sense. Like
yeah,
it just sort of carried on so easily, and I like that about the film. And also I like how I know I talk about his character arc a lot, but I like he sort of changes again in Iron Man 3, like from
mm,
because he's so obsessed with his suits right at the start of the film. He has them in his room. He's
yeah,
building them all the time. He's building new ones all the time. By the end of it, after he's defeated Aldrich Killian, the villain, the main villain in the third one, he gets rid of them. He just gets rid of them all, and he even gets rid of his arc reactor in his chest. And I like how
yeah,
he realised he doesn't need that to be him. I think
mhm,
at the start of the film he was so obsessed with the Iron Man was Tony Stark and Tony Stark was Iron Man. They weren't two different things. They were the same thing. Like they couldn't live without each other. And I think at the end of the film, he realised that Tony Stark doesn't need to be Iron Man to be Tony Stark.
mhm,
If that makes sense. I like how he
yeah,
realised that throughout the film. And I think when he was in the place, I can't remember the town with the potato kid, when he
yeah,
got the potato gun. I think when he didn't have his suit, he realised he didn't need it, and I think that
mm,
was a big realization for him. And I love that about Iron Man 3. Even though I don't think it's probably the worst of the Iron Man films, I love that part about it. How he really realizes he doesn't
yeah.
need to have the suits to be Tony Stark. I think that's a really good part about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it is the worst out of the trilogy. One scene that I do particularly like is when they discover the location of the Mandarin or the other Mandarin, and he
Yeah,
goes into just this local, I think like an American B&Q, and he gets all these random equipment, starts making it all himself, and he makes his own bombs, he makes his own I think like a rail gun stuff, just out of his own like normal objects that you'd find in your dad's garden,
yeah,
and he basically I think kills about or not kills or like injures about 6 or 7 guards who are guarding this massive mansion in Malibu in Florida or California, and in the end, then they discover the Mandarin, which was quite disappointing to see that it wasn't Killian; it was just some random poser. But I still like the whole scene where he makes his own stuff. That's the engineer in him. Rather than the billionaire playboy or well, just
yeah,
Tony Stark himself. Yeah,
yeah. I think that's a good representation of who Tony Stark actually is as well. I like that about that scene about it.
yeah,
Um, what haven't we discussed? I'll probably maybe the villains in Iron Man. I do think the Captain America villains are so much better than the Iron Man villains.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
in the first one, his boss essentially. It's not really that big of
Mm,
a villain. In
yeah.
the second one, I mean, to be fair, Whiplash is quite a good villain. I think he's the best villain in out of the
Yeah.
three films with his big
Really?
two. I think Whiplash is the best villain out of the Iron Man films. I think
I didn't. I'd never liked it just because like I always like it when villains have a motive. You know, you never really saw anything like I think it was his dad that worked with Howard Stark, and then he died, and oh, they always had like a whole hatred for the Starks. But I
yeah,
think the other two villains like had more of a objective, more of a motive. In the first film, I think um, he didn't like that Tony like went left the whole. He wanted to kill Tony. That's the whole reason why it
yeah,
happened in the Middle East, where he got captured.
yeah,
And in the third film, even though I got disappointed with the whole poser, but I still liked Aldrich Killian. You know, the
yeah,
scene where he gets left behind in New Year's, like in the like late or early 90s, and you see him
yeah,
like with a he looks like a cripple. He looks different. He looks like he's been defeated, and he's looking at the sky or the fireworks, and he's thinking to himself like, "Why me? What have I done to deserve this? Like, why couldn't Tony Stark meet me?" And I think he wanted to tell him about something that he was going to event, and that's like where most villain arcs like begin. You know, you've got the hero. He meets some random like ugly looking character who just doesn't look very confident, like they mean anything. They either insult them or anything just to upset them, and then 20 years later they come back and then they're all big. They look different. They're richer, and they want to kill you. That's what makes a good villain.
yeah. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Actually, yeah, you made some good points. I
Mm.
like the Whiplash because obviously I think he has the best weaponry, if that makes sense. I think
Yeah,
he's the hardest to beat. I feel like he does have a motive. I feel like because the whole arc reactor was his dad's idea, and
yeah,
Tony Stark, no, sorry, Tony Stark's father, took credit for it. And I think like, I mean, that's not really directed at Tony Stark, but like,
yeah,
I sort of get where his motive's coming from because where else is he meant to place his anger except the only living Stark
yeah,
left, which is Tony. So, I I mean, the other two probably do have better motives. They have the reason to kill Stark is probably better for them rather than
yeah.
Whiplash. But I like him as a villain, even though he's represented as like the typical Russian villain. You know, drinks vodka, has a
Hmm.
toothpick, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah,
I just I like that he he's manipulative. I like his manipulative side. It's just the way
mm,
he manipulates Justin Hammer. He said he's going to build his suit.
yeah,
He doesn't. He builds his own suit just for his own personal gain. I like that about him. I mean, I don't think the other two, whilst they are both very manipulative, I don't think they're as manipulative because they
yeah,
in the first one he had all the equipment he needed already. He didn't need to try and get someone to. He didn't
mm,
need to try and trick anyone to get any equipment. And in the
yeah,
third one, I think it's similar. He had his own lair. He had everything. He didn't need anywhere to do it. Where in the second one, Whiplash had to try and convince someone so he can get all the stuff
yeah,
he needed. And I love that about him, how
yeah,
he tricks and he's sneaky. And I think that's an important trait in a villain. I love that about a villain who can like trick and deceive people. I love that. That's why I think he's probably one of the best one. I think.
yeah. Good point. Yeah, I think out of all the Captain America films, I think my favorite villain has to be Helmut Zemo, just
Yeah.
because of how he orchestrated the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like if like so, it started off with the whole UN explosion. He orchestrated that. Everyone thought that he'd be Bucky, but it wasn't. He then brainwashes him in the facility himself. I love that scene when he says all those words in, I think it's Russian, and you
Yeah.
just see Bucky changing from well Bucky to the Winter Soldier. He escapes, and the whole fight scene with him and Tony, and then with the Black Panther himself. It's a great scene. Then they escape. Uh, Steve then, well, he wants to find Bucky because he's always going to believe that that's his friend. You know, he's never going to be like, yeah, because he killed me, I'm just gonna let him leave. You know, he's not my friend anymore. He tried to kill me. I don't really care. No, he's very like loyal to his friend, and in the end, then they find each other. Bucky's back to sort of like normal stage. He's not the Winter Soldier. He's just Bucky, and they then go into this Russian like lab, and Tony's there as well. In there is also Helmut Zemo, who shows Tony the video of Bucky killing his parents in 1991, and then it begins. You see Tony going from, oh, that's cool, that's a video. Then you see the whole crash. He realizes that it's his parents, and then you see Bucky looking at the camera and him shooting it. I love that scene.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole thing begins. And it's, well, Iron Man versus Captain America and the Winter Soldier. You don't think that Iron Man's gonna win, but in the end, Captain America just decides to give up his shield, which
Yeah.
was a great touch. I like how in most MCU trilogies, the hero always loses a sort of like thing that they like you said about Tony, he loses arc reactor, and in this
Yeah.
film, he loses a shield.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
true.
love that.
Yeah. I like the way that they. I know it's cool to getting away from the trilogy bit, but like, they continue the feud all the way until Endgame.
Yeah,
Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, they didn't speak until Endgame, and I thought
yeah,
I like how they continued that feud. They sort of made it
yeah,
more real in essence. That they really did not like each other for quite a period of time. Well, Tony didn't like Steve. I
yeah.
don't think Steve actually hated Tony. I think he understood why
No,
he did what he did.
yeah.
Um,
Good point. I think yeah.
I think we've spoke about everything. I think we should probably try and decide which trilogy is better. If I'm going to be honest.
So we've spoken about plot, villain,
Villain,
soundtrack,
yeah,
um, and well, the three films like overall how they are.
yeah, yeah. I think soundtrack's Iron Man, so it's one of Iron Man, I guess.
Okay, fine. Villains, Captain America,
Yes, 1-1.
1-1. Okay.
Plot. I don't know.
So I think I have to win for that one because between Iron Man and Captain America, all three Captain America films are great. You know, you have the beginning, Steve Rogers becomes Captain America, fights the Nazis, wins. Second film, a lot darker. Bucky's back, but as a bad guy. Hydra's also back, so he has to do the whole like it's like going back in time. He has to go back and defeat Hydra and defeat his best friend. That's
Yeah.
another reason why I love that. I also love. I didn't mention this though. Fight scene in the elevator. You remember that,
Yes.
right?
I
Yeah,
can't believe you forgot that.
yeah.
That's one of the best fight scenes. That is one of the best
That's the
fight scenes.
best scene. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. I'll
and
give you plot.
there you go. See, and the third film, then Civil War. Everyone loves Civil War. Iron Man,
Yeah.
Captain America. Boom.
Yeah.
What more can I say?
Right. Yeah. Okay. It's not looking good for me so far. What else did we talk about? Villains.
Uh,
You've got the better villains.
yeah. I think it's 2-1 or 3-1 me.
3-1 you.
Yeah,
And the last one. Generally, which one's better, like film wise? Which is Captain America, isn't it?
Captain America. Yeah. I mean, if you also like look at like actual like Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, Captain America wins at that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like everyone thought Iron Man 3 sucked. I think that's what drags the Iron Man trilogy down.
Yeah, I do think that's.
Yeah,
I feel like it could have been so much better.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know why it wasn't as good as the other two, but yeah, I don't think the third one drags the whole trilogy down a bit. So
No,
yeah, I guess Captain America trilogy is better. Um, Fair enough.
we win.
Anyway, thanks guys for listening to me and Esteban debate, and hope you can join us for our next episode. Thank you very much.
Thanks for
See you
watching.
later.